Hello, welcome back to Kaiserreich as the Combined Syndicates of America. I'm actually going to turn up the music a little bit because I've noticed it's kind of loud, or sorry, not loud, it's kind of quiet in the mixing. Even though I kind of think this gets a bit too loud at some points. It doesn't reflect that accurately on the footage afterwards, because my voice is quite loud in the mixing. Just so that I don't have to actually talk that loudly myself and rest my voice. Which is very beneficial. But yeah, so we are continuing with our planning for what I am going to be calling, without a hint of irony, the War Plan Red for the Syndicalist army to invade Canada. The historical War Plan Red was the hypothetical plan for a hypothetical invasion, or not a hypothetical plan, a plan existed, but the plan for a hypothetical invasion of Canada by the United States. Every nation makes these kinds of plans for, situations where they might need to, invade, where there might be a military necessity. I did see some people saying I should just let these guys go at it in Europe, and while I think that is honestly, that is the best idea, I also am kind of scared of either side becoming too powerful. For example, Germany, if Germany takes the Commune of France and just starts snowballing here, they can actually become a threat to us. Like a legitimate threat. And while I think we'll be able to overcome it, I fear the immense loss of life a prolonged war that is, with the German Empire is going to entail. At the moment, we have a possibility open to us, and that is taking Britain and then naval invading up here in northern Germany, and then just rushing down Berlin, and then just cutting off the German army from supplies, and then pushing down southwest on them from behind. A sort of sickle landing on them from the sea. Kind of like the, the hammer and anvil, the, what's it called? The Kesselschlacht? Whatever the plan of the Schlieffen plan, or, the quote-unquote Schlieffen plan, the general vague idea for how Germany was going to win a war against France. The reason I say, quote-unquote Schlieffen plan is because there's been discussion, historical discussion, as of late, and by as of late I mean, the last 10 years, or a little bit more, maybe, last, actually when 2019, maybe the last 20 years, I don't know, about whether or not the Schlieffen plan actually was, had any real impact on German military planning, or if the plans that they created were more or less just not actually a byproduct of Schlieffen, but a byproduct of just the strategic realities, like the Schlieffen plan was, and altered and changed to suit the the realities of 1914 and 1940 instead of 1905 or whenever Schlieffen made the original plan. And by altered, I don't mean the altered Schlieffen's plan, but they created something new, I guess. An ad hoc plan which just ended up being like Schlieffen, because Schlieffen was based on the strategic realities of the war, or of what a war like that would look like, so of course the new plan would have to be as well. What the fuck are the sounds I'm hearing? Hold on. Oh, we can't hear that. I don't know if those were children or dinosaurs outside. I'm hoping it's not the latter, because then we would have a real problem on our hands. Probably don't even need we don't need any more troops on the Great Lakes army here. In general, we don't really need any more troops in the armies opposing Canada, honestly. The rest of the armies will probably just put them somewhere I don't know, is what factions Cuba? Reichspakt. We'll probably just put them in Florida for an eventual naval invasion of Cuba. Interesting. Guantanamo Bay is its own tile, which facilitates the the creation of a United States like leased territory. What if that was the original intent by that? I don't actually know if like when the United States got a hold of Guantanamo Bay. Like, do they have it in vanilla 24? Meaning, you know, the original timeline and World War II. This song is cool. Most of them are. Oh god, yeah, the Commune of France is not doing too hot. Black Oak Division? Cool. Got enough chromium, apparently. Where are we getting that? Probably from, expanding infrastructure. Get our Marines up to speed because they're gonna be invading over here. It actually, unironically, sucks to have this much infrastructure because you need to, like, constantly set your factories to be doing stuff, and that gets annoying. Oh, we actually need to make more light tanks. Oh yeah, we actually don't have enough military factories. Huh. A good thing I've queued up a whole bunch then. Second Constitutional Convention. I was expecting some events there, but... wonder why not. Like, that was a 140-day one, wasn't it? No, 70-day, okay, never mind. Because the 140-day ones usually have, like, events taking place while you're doing it. Now I can do the next step and get ready for... wars. Plural. There we go, the Constitutional Convention begins. Today, delegates have gathered from across the country in the city of Philadelphia as the Second Constitutional Convention is convened in order to draft a new and better constitution for America. Initial controversy erupts as the AFL brought their own delegation in spite of the orders from the IWW to let them represent the whole of industrial labor. Other interest groups that swore allegiance to Reed have also shown up, including members of the defunct Knights of Labor and National Civic Federation. The most important of these smaller labor federations is the trade union Unity League. This organization, represented by Earl Browder and William Foster, represents a resurgence of vanguardism in the States. A small riot on the second day erupted when the International Peace Mission and Southern Tenant Farmers Union were ejected from the convention. These unions had been neutral during the revolution, and were initially accepted due to their high percentage of black membership. The loyalists to the old order are not invited, apparently. I mean, to move forward, all must... like, we need everyone to be on board when we're moving forward. We can't just say because you were against us, now you cannot be with us, then... like, what are they gonna do? They can't... they are given no choice but to be against us. Doesn't seem like a very, very good way of going about things, but okay. Alright, hold on. The AFL has made a splash in what many expected to be a landslide victory for the IWW. What was supposed to be an easy article, that of the new legislative branch, has drawn a line in the sand. The IWW representatives argue that America should be strictly a narco-syndicalist government, with all legislative vested in the industrial trade unions. These unions seek to abolish membership fees and elect representatives via wall-to-wall bargaining unit elections. The AFL argues that America should be a socialist state with power vested in local councils of professional workers. The AFL claims representatives should be elected via seniority, with full voting rights given to only citizens that have spent some years paying dues and serving their fellow man. Okay. TUUL Representative William Foster spoke in favor of the IWW, stating that seniority and paying to vote is no different than graft, which is something a vanguard of syndicalism cannot support. Foster's impassionate speech, if it leads to the IWW legislation passing, could signal a shift in support for the TUUL over the IWW. So, we've got the Central Committee right now, because Reed is no longer the president at the moment. We are choosing our leaders. Totalists gain an edge in the convention, or radical socialists gain an edge. So, hold on. It's interesting, why would they, require that someone had worked in a specific branch or something like that in order to even get to vote? That's like... that's kind of messed up. Well, we're gonna go with this one though, because we're gonna stay far away from totalism at least. And we are going to go with this one. Depending on what happens, depending on how this one is framed later on, I might actually go with the syndicalist one. Radical socialists gain an edge at the convention. For now. That might change. So the Constitution and the framework, Article 1. All power in America derives from the people and belongs to the people. The people exercise state power through councils of professional workers, which constitute the political foundation of America. All other state bodies are under the control of and accountable to the councils of professional workers. Article 2. All representative organs of state authority are elected by the citizens on the basis of universal, equal, and direct suffrage by secret ballot to their respective unions. Unions reserve the right to deny workers membership if their membership fee falls into the public debt. The workers' representatives in all organs of state authority are responsible to their electors. It will be determined by law in which cases, under what conditions, and in what way the elections or electors may recall the representatives even before the end of the period for which they were elected. At least that's a good feature of the Constitution. Article 3. No law or administrative or local rules or regulations shall contravene the Constitution. Obviously makes sense. All state organs, the armed forces, all political parties, and public organizations, and all enterprises and undertakings must abide by the Constitution and the law. All acts in violation of the Constitution and the law may be investigated by a commission of councils of professional workers. No organization or individual may enjoy the privilege of being above the Constitution and the law. Approved. So say we all. Do we have a thing that gives us a war thingy? War economy or some shit? Great leap forward. Ouch. Nothing that I can see. Enable Carry Fighter 2 technology. Oh cool, we get it for free. So, make a note to do not research Carry Fighter 2 technology. I will probably forget that and still do it anyways, because very often, when it comes to this, because I'm making a lot of series, I'm an idiot and I just forget. Socialist Constitution, Human Rights and Workers' Rights. Article 6. By the way, if this is boring to you, this is probably going to be most of the episode, the Constitutional Convention. I'm sorry, but I find this very interesting. War is probably next episode. Citizens are guaranteed the freedom of the press, freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of assembly, the freedom to hold public meetings and demonstrations, freedom of conscience, and freedom of religion are guaranteed to citizens. Good. Citizenship is defined as all Americans living legally within America during the time of ratification of the Constitution. The Church and the state are not obligated to adhere to each other's authority. So the Church is not obligated to adhere to the state's authority. I suppose that's a good thing, because then you don't get a state church, I guess. Women have equal rights with men in all fields of state, economic and social political life. Women have the right to collectively bargain as men do for the same work, and as workers or employees, they enjoy special protection. The state reserves the right to pay an equivalent wage up to 20 hours of work a week to mothers before and after childbirth, maternity leave. Article 8. Citizens of America are guaranteed inviolably of the person. Guaranteed inviolability. Of the person. No one may be arrested except by a court decision or on the warrant of a procurator. Procurator or procurator? Citizens of America are guaranteed inviolability of the home. No one may, without lawful grounds, enter a home against the will of those residing in it. Sounds very American. Article 9. The state promises working people the right to associate and organize themselves to collectively bargaining units. The state protects a person's dignity of labor from exploitation by private enterprises, ensuring the right to paid annual holidays by controlling working conditions, by devoting attention to housing conditions and social insurance. This all sounds very good. I have a feeling that a lot of this stuff was written by someone who, went over the existing American Constitution and were what do I not like about this, and what would these people not like about this? And we're how do we fix this? Socialist Constitution, which makes sense, because, that's what they're doing right now. Judiciary. Okay, this one is very important. The IWW has made a strong impression for removing the Supreme Court as the final appeal for constitutionality, instead making the appellate courts carry that weight. That's actually kind of similar to something in Norway, where you can appeal to higher and higher courts and stuff, but they're all they're kind of like a Supreme Court, but not really. They're, they don't have permanent justices that sit for life or whatever. Reminding members of the Convention of the Court's track record for legalizing oppression of unions and downright reactionary laws, of course. Elizabeth Gurley Flynn remarked that preserving an unelected position of final legal decision could lead to authoritarianism, of course. To the surprise of many, Earl Browder of the TUL dissented, arguing that this discrimination was the result of corrupt party system, and not an inherent flaw in the US Constitution. I disagree, Browder. To Browder, removing the Supreme Court could endanger the unity of the nation and lead to more schisms, as had happened in the Soviet Union. The AFL have quietly dissented with their vanguardist cohort and pledged to support Flynn if her resolution passes. Enshrine judicial review of the court, or the Supreme Court will not be missed. Wait, what? Seems like these are flipped, but I'm gonna go with this one. But I thought, isn't Browder the totalist? And he doesn't want the Supreme Court gone, and it says the Supreme Court will not be missed. I'm gonna enshrine judicial review of the court, I suppose. So we keep the Supreme Court, but we review it, or what? Because this seems like Elizabeth Gurley Flynn's position. I wonder who we can end up with as leader. Oh, we got Elizabeth Gurley Flynn right now as head of government. So the economics. Article 15, the foundation of the economic system of America is a socialist ownership of the means of production in the form of public property, belonging to all the people and collective cooperative property. Article 16. All mineral and other wealth underground, the waters, including mineral and medicinal waters. Okay. The sources of natural power, the means of rail and air transport, the posts, the telegraphs, telephones, and broadcasting are all public property. Article 17. The land belongs to those who cultivate it. The property of collective farms and other cooperative organizations and of their joint undertakings compromises the means of production and other assets which they require for the purposes laid down in their rules. The land held by collective farms is secured to them for their free use in perpetuity. Okay. Article 18. Private property and private initiative in economy are guaranteed. The inheritance of private property is guaranteed. The right of inheritance is regulated by the state. No person is permitted to use the right of private property to the detriment of the people's community. This is also very, very similar to Norway, I suppose, this part in the beginning here. And also, this is something that a lot of people, they talk about how Marxists often want to abolish private property, but to my knowledge, that was never the case. I don't think that's I don't think that's actually been a case in terms of or in old Marxist ideology. Maybe it was a newer thing that came in with Marxist-Leninism, but I'm not a scholar of Marxist-Leninism, so I wouldn't know. So yeah, it doesn't feel like totally off-brand for them to regulate and guarantee the right to private property and private initiative in the economy. No person is permitted to use the right of private property. Oh, sorry, I read that. The existence of private monopolist organizations such as cartels, syndicates, trusts, and similar organizations created for the purpose or repurposed for dictating prices, monopolizing the market, and damaging the interests of the public economy is forbidden. Private property may be limited or expropriated if the common interest requires it, but only in accordance with the law. It will be determined by law in which cases and to what extent the owner shall be compensated. Under the same conditions, individual branches of national economy or single enterprises may be nationalized by law if the common interest requires it. Alright. So the state can, in theory, seize industries and such, which, I mean, that's the case for most states, I suppose. Socialist constitution, status of the president. This is important. A surge of unaligned delegates has attempted to leave for a recess several times to no avail. It appears that the issue of executive power has met an impasse, and a decision must be made before the delegates starve in indecision. Ouch. On one side is the IWW, whose plan for a totally anarcho-syndicalist government requires there to be no executive officer. Their belief is that a president is an inherently reactionary populist position, and that they will ensure that a person like Huey Long can never rise to power in the new America. Thomas suggests a weak head of state position. The opposition is another cooperation of the AFL and TUL, who wish for a strong face to represent America. A leader without the means, they argue, could never save America as Reed did, without power. Norman Thomas has condemned the AFL for what he sees as a Boulangist coup, perpetuated by the AFL and the TUL to revive the old federal government. John L. Lewis of the AFL rises to object, saying subordination to the IWW program is no different than a single-party state. So, we are not going to have a powerful president. We are going to have decentralized power in the anarcho-syndicalist way, I suppose, or in a sort of like a I forget the word now. This is the problem with speaking multiple languages. Sometimes you remember a language in one word and just forget in the other. Socialist constitution, centralization or decentralization. I think I know which one I'm going to go with. The convention, after resuming, has found themselves more divided than ever. The core of the IWW has galvanized into a stricter dogma that pushes for the remaining articles to protect against tyranny of a central government. demanding protection through the lifetime assurance of union membership and compounding social security with lifelong employment. What? Several IWW delegates had implied that the AFL has been antagonistic and would prefer a return to capitalism. In response, the AFL have been swayed by TUL to emphasize the dignity of labor in government. The argument rebukes industrial unionism with craft unionism, where the right to fair wages for fair work done replaces the IWW's goal of the abolition of wages. Browder again takes the stage, calling to protect craft unionism as it prevents a tyranny of the 51% over the 49% in union elections. So guaranteed employment will stop tyrants, or dignity of labor will stop tyrants. Guaranteed employment is probably the better choice here. A lot of this stuff is like incredibly, like, oh, we have to pick the capital. Oh, this is interesting. But yeah, a lot of this stuff is very, like, down to the nitty-gritty, down to like the brass tacks. So a lot of this might fly over some people's heads. I know a lot of it is flying over my head. One of the last things to be decided is the capital of America. While many are advocating for Washington, D.C. as the capital, as it was the old capital and easily fits that purpose, others are advocating for the loyal cities of Chicago, Philadelphia, and New York City. Which shall the convention choose? So I may be biased here. Or not even biased, I may be like... I may be making this decision based on faulty logic. I know Chicago would be a great capital, for the symbolic reason that it is where the revolution began. But also, one of the turning points of the revolution, from our early playthrough, I think, was the turning of New York City. And New York City is the largest economy, as far as I know, in America at this time. It is one of the most populous regions. This tiny region here, 8.31 million. Like populous, I mean in terms of density. We look at Chicago, 8.41 million, but that's Illinois, and that covers all this stuff. And this is just New York City here with 8.31 M. And that's only like recruitable population. So, I don't know, well, honestly though, civilian population and recruitable population isn't that different. So yeah, I want New York City. Philadelphia would be good too. I know that I don't necessarily want Washington. You see, like, even New York City has more victory points than any of the other cities. So I feel like moving it to New York City just, I don't know, it feels cool, it makes sense, kind of. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in New York City nowadays. Some people might say that it, you know, there's Wall Street and all that in New York City, it has this, like, disgusting financial connotation to it. In terms of, like, that would be kind of like a betrayal of the revolution, I suppose. But, I don't know, I'm not that interested in, like, that kind of symbol politics in this world. I think right now we are rebuilding the nation, and we are making kind of pragmatic decisions for what we think will be best for the nation, and the symbol of the revolution, if you do want to get into symbol politics and stuff like that, the symbol of the revolution, I guess, taking over this financial capital and then turning it into something else, would be a great symbol as well. And also, it does have, but it is home to a lot of factories and a lot of workers. I'm gonna go with New York City. And I don't see the capital icon, but maybe that'll change. The Constitutional Convention has finally come to an end, and the new Constitution of America has been written. The delegates are returning to their home states with a new set of allies and rivals. Despite the optimism expressed in the congratulatory photos, the real work of rebuilding the country has just begun. Long live the workers of America. I think some people did, oh, there you go. Some people did ask for a more central capital, but the most central one is Chicago, which is the one we've had for a little while. I don't know. I don't feel like Chicago is necessarily the best capital for practical reasons. I think having it close to the sea is a good idea. Makes it easier for travel and whatnot. Especially in New York City with all its infrastructure and stuff. Putting it out here, for example, would be a very bad idea. You'd have to build the capital from the ground up. So who is our interim president then? Oh yeah, here we go. I'm gonna respond to this one next episode, but I'm gonna do this one first. On the final day of Congress, John Silas Reed, better known as Jack Reed, announced that he would step down as leader of the country. Rumors of his deteriorating health were kept away from the press, a gentleman's agreement of sorts. Reminds me of another president in this period. Jack Reed proclaims he will spend his remaining time with his wife, Louise, and his daughter, Moreover, Reed emphasized his role was to see the country through the revolution, but a new leader needs to lead it now. Very noble of you. Of the attendees at the Congress, two have gained the most prominence. One is Elizabeth Gurley Flynn of the IWW, who has begun a national campaign to excite voters for a possible female president, namely herself. The other is Norman Thomas, who has led the SPA delegates to work with the Social Democrats to pledge votes to him. There is an understanding that even though this position of leadership is interim until the election, it still will allow either president to exert a great deal of influence over the country's groundwork. So this is Elizabeth Gurley Flynn. And let's see, where's Thomas? Norman Thomas. I actually don't see him. Huh. So Gurley Flynn is Socialist Labour Party and Norman Thomas is Socialist Party of America. The Socialist Labour Party is Syndicalist, and Norman Thomas is Socialist Party of America. Actually, I have a better idea than picking them right now. I'm going to wait until the next episode, and I'm going to ask you guys, please, to decide for me, because I can't decide right now. I was very, very into the idea of going down the business unionism path, rad socialist, but I'm also kind of leaning towards the syndicalist path right now, and I haven't really fully decided. So please, if you have a preference, put it in the comments down below. Elizabeth Gurley Flynn or Norman Thomas. And know that it might have ramifications for the future election, though we don't know exactly how much of a ramification or how much of a an impact it will have. But yeah, anyways, that is the end of the episode. Thank you so much for watching. Put your thoughts in the comments down below about the president. I will decide in the next episode. I also read all this stuff, but we are now past most of the reading. My voice is tired, I'm tired, though it has been interesting. If you are interested, you can follow me on Twitch, where I stream every now and then. I'm streaming every now and then a game of democratic Japan in Kaiserreich. So I'm playing as Japan, going down the democratic path over here, defend democracy, exactly the path they've gone down in this game, actually. So I'm doing that. We're engaged in wars in China and whatnot, with the Republic of China has taken over the AOG in that game. It's very interesting. You can find that on twitch.tv. You can find the link for that in the description down below. You can also find a link to the Discord, and you can find a link to my Patreon if you'd like to support me financially, but of course you do not have to, because I'm doing fine. But if you want to do so, the link is there. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Goodbye.